Welcome to Monster Mind, where chaos wears a smile and the truth hit back behind, because once you hear the thoughts inside this mind, there's no going back.
Do you hear that? That sound? That's not silence. That's the collective gasp of everyone who thought they had you figured out. Everyone who pulled up a chair to watch your downfall. Everyone who appointed themselves your personal surveillance team. They came with popcorn. They came with notebooks. They came with that sick, twisted curiosity that only broken people possess when they're studying someone they secretly wish they could destroy. They thought they were gathering intelligence, collecting evidence, building a case against your character. But somewhere between their relentless staring and their obsessive note-taking, something catastrophic happened. They didn't find your weakness. They found their own reflection. And what they saw didn't just disturb them. It shattered them. Completely. Irreversibly. Permanently. Welcome to the aftermath of their biggest mistake, the fallout of their failed investigation, the wreckage of their wasted years, because you weren't the subject. You were the surgeon, and they just watched you operate on their entire reality without even knowing they were on the table. Let's start with the facts. The cold, brutal, undeniable facts that are currently eating them alive from the inside out. They watched you for 547 days. 547 mornings where your name was the first thing on their mind. 547 nights where they scrolled through your life like it was required reading for their existence. 547 chapters of your story that they consumed with an appetite that bordered on addiction, desperately searching for the plot twist that would validate their hatred, justify their judgment, excuse their obsession. They studied your patterns like detectives. They analyzed your words like prosecutors. They dissected your choices like scientists examining a specimen under glass. Every post, every picture, every moment you shared became their research material, their evidence, their ammunition. They were so sure, so absolutely convinced that if they just watched long enough, stared hard enough, investigated deep enough, they'd finally catch you slipping. They'd finally see the mask crack. They'd finally witness the monster they'd already decided you were in their minds. But here's what they didn't account for, what they couldn't have predicted, what has now become their eternal torment. You weren't wearing a mask. You weren't hiding anything. You weren't playing a character. You were just you. Authentically, unapologetically, devastatingly you. And that reality has broken them in ways they'll spend the rest of their lives trying to comprehend. Do you understand what happened in their minds during those 547 days? Do you grasp the psychological warfare they inflicted upon themselves while thinking they were attacking you? They watched you survive things that would have destroyed them. They watched you heal from wounds they would have used as permanent excuses. They watched you rise from situations they would have made their entire identity. They watched you forgive people they would have spent decades plotting revenge against. They watched you maintain dignity in moments where they would have combusted into chaos. They watched you choose growth over bitterness, elevation over retaliation, peace over proving points. And with every single observation, with every piece of so-called intel they gathered, they were actually collecting evidence against themselves. Evidence that they weren't as strong as they pretended to be. Evidence that their survival skills were theatrical, their resilience was conditional, their character was circumstantial. You became their mirror, their measurement, their undeniable proof that they were exactly who they feared they were all along. Not warriors, not survivors, not the protagonists of their own stories. Just spectators, just critics, just people so empty inside that watching you became their only source of feeling anything at all. But it gets worse. So much worse. Because they didn't just watch you. They predicted you. Oh, they were so confident in their predictions, so sure of their analytical abilities, so convinced they'd cracked your code and could forecast your every move. They predicted you'd break by day 30. You didn't. They predicted you'd lash out by day 60. You didn't. They predicted you'd crumble by day 90. You didn't. They predicted you'd expose yourself by day 120. You didn't. They predicted you'd give up by day 180. You didn't. Every single prediction, every carefully calculated assumption, every confident declaration about what you would do, how you would react, when you would finally reveal your true nature, wrong. All of it. Catastrophically, embarrassingly, traumatically wrong. And each failed prediction wasn't just an incorrect guess. It was a revelation of how little they understood about strength, about resilience, about what it actually means to be unbreakable. They were predicting your behavior based on their limitations. They were forecasting your breaking point based on their threshold. They were calculating your endurance based on their capacity. And when you exceeded every single prediction, when you shattered every timeline they'd set for your downfall, when you remained standing long after they'd scheduled your collapse, they realized something horrifying. They weren't studying you. They were exposing themselves. Their predictions were confessions. Their analysis was autobiography. Every weakness they tried to identify in you was actually a weakness they recognized in themselves. Now let's talk about what they actually saw, the raw, unfiltered reality that has traumatized them beyond repair, the truth that plays on repeat in their minds like a horror film they can't escape. They saw you hurt. They saw the tears, the moments of doubt, the nights when your strength flickered and your resolve wavered. They saw you vulnerable, exposed, stripped of all pretense and protection. And they celebrated. Oh, how they celebrated. They sent screenshots to their little group chats. They crafted their commentary. They prepared their told-you-so speeches. They were ready for Act 3 of your tragedy, the final chapter of your destruction, the climactic scene of your downfall. But then you did something they couldn't comprehend. Something that violated every script they'd written for your life. Something that shattered their entire understanding of how broken people are supposed to behave. You got back up. Not with rage. Not with revenge. Not with some dramatic comeback speech designed to prove them wrong. You got back up with quiet dignity. You got back up with private strength. You got back up with a grace that made their celebrations look like the pathetic performances they were. You transformed your pain into power without making it a spectacle. You turned your wounds into wisdom without broadcasting your suffering. You evolved through your trauma without using it as a weapon against those who inflicted it, and that broke them, because they needed you to stay down. They needed you to be the cautionary tale they'd already written. They needed your failure to validate their narrative, but you refused to perform for them. You refused to fulfill their prophecy. You refused to become what they needed you to be to sleep at night. Here's what watching you taught them. Here's the curriculum they never wanted to learn. Here's the education that cost them their peace of mind. Lesson 1. Authenticity is terrifying to frauds. They watched you be genuinely yourself, flaws and all, mistakes included, imperfections on full display. No filter, no facade, no carefully curated version designed to impress or manipulate. Just you in all your messy, complicated, beautifully human truth. And it terrified them, because they've spent their entire lives performing, calculating every word, engineering every image, manufacturing every moment to extract maximum approval from their audience. Watching you exist without that exhausting performance exposed how much energy they waste pretending to be who they think they should be instead of accepting who they actually are. Lesson 2. Silence is more powerful than explanation. They tried everything to provoke a response, to extract a reaction, to force you into the mud with them. They crafted provocations. They spread narratives. They created entire fictional versions of events designed specifically to make you defend yourself, and you said nothing. Not because you were scared. Not because you were hiding. But because you understood something they never will. Lions don't explain themselves to sheep. Eagles don't justify their flight to chickens. Mountains don't defend their height to valleys. You had nothing to prove to people who had already decided who you were. Nothing to explain to minds that were already made up. Nothing to justify to hearts that were already closed. Lesson 3. Healing doesn't require an audience. This one really shredded them. They expected your transformation to be public, loud, performed for validation and applause. They thought you'd need to announce every breakthrough, celebrate every milestone, document every step of your journey for likes and comments and external confirmation. But you healed in private. You processed in silence. You transformed in the shadows where real work happens, where actual growth occurs, where genuine change takes root. No announcements, no updates. No play-by-play of your progress. You just became different, better, stronger, wiser, and they missed it. They were so busy watching for the performance that they completely missed the actual transformation. By the time they realized you'd changed, you were already 3 versions ahead of the person they thought they were monitoring. And that timing, that gap, that realization that they'd been studying an old version of you while the real you evolved beyond their comprehension, it broke something in them that can never be repaired. Lesson 4. Forgiveness is not weakness. They watched you forgive people who didn't deserve it, release people who hadn't earned it, let go of situations that would have justified a lifetime of bitterness, and they called it weak. They labeled it naive. They diagnosed it as trauma response, or people-pleasing, or fear of confrontation. Because in their world, in their framework, in their understanding of power dynamics, forgiveness is surrender. But you knew something they'll never understand. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about refusing to let someone else's actions hold your peace hostage. It's about choosing freedom over being right. It's about prioritizing your evolution over their punishment. You forgave to liberate yourself, not to excuse them. And watching that level of emotional intelligence, that depth of self-awareness, that mastery of your own narrative, it destroyed their entire theory of strength. But we're not done. We haven't even reached the part that truly shattered them, the observation that fractured their reality, the moment they realized they'd made an irreversible mistake. They watched you love, despite everything, despite the betrayals, despite the abandonment, despite the cruelty, despite being given every justification to close your heart, build walls, swear off connection, and become as cold and calculating as the people who hurt you. They watched you stay soft. They watched you stay open. They watched you stay capable of genuine connection, authentic emotion, real vulnerability. They watched you risk your heart again after it had been shattered. They watched you trust again after being betrayed. They watched you hope again after being disappointed. They watched you choose love over protection, connection over isolation, faith in humanity over cynicism and bitterness. And it was incomprehensible to them. Because they've armored themselves so heavily that they can barely feel anything anymore. They've built walls so high that nothing real can reach them. They've protected themselves so thoroughly that they've actually imprisoned themselves. They're safe, sure, but they're also alone. Truly, devastatingly, perpetually alone. And watching you maintain your capacity for love, your willingness to be hurt, your courage to stay vulnerable in a world that punishes vulnerability, it showed them exactly what they sacrificed for their safety. It showed them the cost of their protection. It showed them what they lost when they decided to never risk anything again. And that revelation, that mirror, that undeniable truth about what they've become, it broke them completely. Do you know what the worst part is for them? The truly unbearable part that will haunt them for the rest of their existence. They can't unsee it now. They can't unknow what they learned. They can't unlearn what your life taught them about their own limitations, their own cowardice, their own small existence. Before they watched you, they could tell themselves comfortable lies. They could believe they were strong because they'd never been truly tested. They could think they were dignified because they'd never been publicly humiliated. They could assume they were resilient because they'd never experienced real trauma. They could imagine they were forgiving because they'd never been deeply betrayed. They could pretend they were brave because they'd never faced anything that required actual courage. But you came along and detonated every single one of those comfortable delusions. You showed them what strength actually looks like when it's not theoretical. You demonstrated what dignity actually means when it's not performative. You embodied what resilience actually requires when it's not optional. You exemplified what forgiveness actually costs when it's not convenient. You illustrated what bravery actually demands when it's not celebrated. And now they have to live with that knowledge. They have to exist in a world where they've seen the standard, witnessed the bar, observed the example. And they know, in the deepest, darkest, most honest part of themselves, that they try so hard to ignore, that they don't measure up. They never did. They never will. Let's talk about their current state, their present reality, the life they're living right now in the aftermath of their failed investigation. They wake up, and you're the first thing they think about. Not because they care about you, but because you're the evidence they can't dismiss, the proof they can't refute, the truth they can't escape. You haunt them. Your resilience haunts them. Your grace haunts them. Your evolution haunts them. Your peace haunts them. Every time they justify their own pettiness, they think of your maturity. Every time they indulge in bitterness, they remember your forgiveness. Every time they choose comfort over growth, they recall your transformation. Every time they play victim, they see your accountability. Every time they make excuses, they hear your silence. You've become the ghost in their machine, the glitch in their matrix, the error message in their programming. And they can't delete you. They can't uninstall you. They can't reboot and start fresh. Because you're not in their system. You're in their consciousness. You're woven into their understanding of what's possible, what's real, what actually matters. And that presence, that permanent reminder of everything they're not and everything they'll never be, it's a torture they inflicted upon themselves. They try to diminish you now. Of course they do. That's what people do when they can't compete with your reality. They create alternative narratives, revised histories, fictional accounts of who you are and what you've done. They whisper about luck, privilege, circumstances, anything to avoid acknowledging what actually happened. They need to believe you had advantages they didn't have, support they didn't receive, opportunities they weren't given. Because if you did it with the same resources, the same challenges, the same limitations they have, then what's their excuse? What's their justification? What's their reason for being exactly where they are while you're exactly where you are? So they construct elaborate explanations, build complex theories, develop entire mythologies about your journey that have nothing to do with the truth. But here's the thing, here's what they can't escape, no matter how many stories they tell. They watched it happen. They were there. They saw every step, witnessed every struggle, observed every obstacle. They can lie to others, sure. They can spread their fictional narratives to anyone willing to listen, but they can't lie to themselves. Not completely, not permanently, not in those quiet moments at 3 a.m. when the performance ends and they're alone with their thoughts. In those moments, they know. They know you earned every single thing you have. They know you survived what would have destroyed them. They know you became who you are, despite everything working against you. And that knowledge, that undeniable truth they carry despite all their public denials, it's eating them alive one day at a time. Here's what they lost while they were watching you. What they sacrificed at the altar of their obsession. What they traded for their front row seat to your life. They lost time. 547 days they'll never get back. 547 days they could have spent building their own life, healing their own wounds, pursuing their own dreams, becoming their own person. But they were too busy watching you to create anything worth watching themselves. They lost focus. Every moment spent analyzing your choices was a moment not spent making better choices for themselves. Every hour dedicated to predicting your next move was an hour stolen from planning their own strategy. Every day consumed with thoughts of you was a day not invested in thoughts about their own growth, their own goals, their own transformation. They lost peace. Real, genuine, soul-deep peace. Because you can't watch someone with malicious intent and maintain inner tranquility. You can't study someone hoping to find their weakness and keep your own heart clean. You can't obsess over someone else's life and experience satisfaction with your own. They traded their peace for poison, their contentment for contempt, their joy for judgment. And now they're stuck with the consequences, the aftermath, the permanent residue of decisions they can't undo. They lost relationships, real ones, authentic ones, the kind that require presence, attention, genuine investment. Because you can't be fully present with people in your life when you're mentally consumed with someone who's not. You can't build deep connections when your thoughts are occupied by someone you claim to hate. You can't create meaningful memories when you're too busy monitoring someone else's moments. So their relationships suffered. Their friendships became shallow. Their family connections grew distant. Their romantic situations turned toxic. Because how can you love someone properly when you're spending emotional energy on someone you supposedly despise? How can you be vulnerable with people who care about you when you're fortified with bitterness towards someone who doesn't? They lost themselves. This is the big one, the catastrophic one, the irreversible one. Somewhere in those 547 days of watching you, studying you, obsessing over you, they forgot who they were. Their identity became tied to their opinion of you. Their personality became defined by their judgment of you. Their entire sense of self became wrapped up in their position relative to you. They became less of a person and more of a reaction. Less of an individual and more of a response. Less of a protagonist and more of a narrator in someone else's story. And now that they're trying to step back, trying to move on, trying to reclaim their life, they're discovering a terrifying truth. They don't know who they are without you as their reference point. They don't know what they want without you as their contrast. They don't know how to be anyone except the person who watches you.